Hello and welcome back to the Chelsea Echo and welcome to your Champions League night preview. Chelsea versus Ajax, an evening kickoff under the lights at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday, the 22nd of October 2025. It is myself, Louis Beneventi.
It's myself, Daniel Childs.
And we're here to give you everything you need to know about what is going to be happening in that game against the amazing Dutch outfit. It's always interesting playing Ajax. They're obviously not as good as they were, but they're a side which has a lot of, as Jose would call it, heritage. It's football heritage, and I like playing those sort of teams. Obviously, you can play the Barcelonas, Real Madrid, but I feel like when you're playing teams that aren't quite as good, but were like powerhouses, like AC Milan, Inter, Ajax, maybe even like a Marseille or a Lyon if they got back into the Champions League, that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff I look forward to. I don't know about you. Those are games? Obviously, you look out for the big ones, but do you get excited for these sort of games as well?
It does kind of feel like, Champions League heritage type fixture. That badge, that history. We were talking just before we started recording, right? That some of the memories around playing Ajax, and the remarkable thing for me is that we've only played them twice in the Champions League.
Which I find, as soon as you said that, I found that mental, because I was thinking, surely we've played them at other opportunities as well. Like that was just, but the fact it was only that Lampard season.
Specifically Champions League, that was it. Because I remember at the time when we drew them, it was the first time we'd come up against them. And I think it was the same for Lille that season as well. It was the first time we'd come up against Lille in the Champions League. So, for two clubs that have been in this competition for a number of years and have the history that both clubs do, it's bizarre. But I mean, it's the same with like Real Madrid, right? We spent a lot of years not playing Real Madrid at all, and then we started playing them. Dortmund, it took a long time until we faced them in the Champions League. So it does happen. But I mean, you can't get away from. I mean, for me, one of the best football experiences I've had at the Bridge. Like very, very blessed that me and my dad were literally a couple of rows back, central behind the goal in the Harding Lower for that game.
I remembered it because I saw you that night. That's just come back to my mind, because obviously I was there with my dad and my little brother in our seats, and we had a chat at half time, didn't we? Because you came across.
Probably, yeah. I think it was 2019, 20. It would have, because I remember that year we went to a couple of like the Champions League and Cup games in the Harding Lower, like when we moving away from back in the olden times when getting tickets was an easier was an easier mission.
Don't get me started on that for this week. Oh my god! I teach people how to use that forwarding system. Bloody hell!
Yeah, but it was. I mean, it's just absolutely insanity, wasn't it? In terms of that game. I also realized that was a game, given we're not going to make this show political, but given recent footballing events, I'll say it was also a night without Ajax fans. Ajax fans were banned that night, if you remember, because it was quite bizarre when they scored how silent it was. So there was a lot of mad things about that game. I mean, Hakim Ziyech looked like the best player in the world on that night. Jorginho smashing penalties.
Wasn't that the game where the ball came off Kepa's face as well?
Yep.
Yeah, that was it. I remember that.
Reece absolutely smashed it in for his. It was his first Champions League Chelsea goal. It wasn't his first goal for the club, but
I think it was. Was it his?
No, his first was Grimsby. It was his first one was against Grimsby. So there was so much about that night that was just wonderful, wasn't it? And I think that like it's going to take a lot, because you look at not just that Chelsea side, but that Ajax side. Like it's amazing how much changes in such a short space of time. You actually think about like 2019 compared to looking back to games at like in like 2010 or even 2014. But like you look at that Ajax side that faced Chelsea that night. Andre Onana was in goal.
Did you like the teams go through the team?
Yeah, obviously I know Ziyech was playing. I believe Tadic was around Ajax at that point.
I'm on the UEFA website, so I should have it here. All right, here you go, lineups. So Chelsea's team that night was Kepa in goal, Alonso and Aspilicueta as the full-backs, Zuma and Tomori were the centre-backs, Kovacic, Jorginho, and Mount was the midfield. Willian, Abraham, and Pulisic was the front three. The side for oh my god, he was playing. Okay, this I don't know. We're going to talk about him because this is just football culture banter, which is great. Onana was in goal. You had a back four of Tagliafico, Blint, Veltman, and Mazraoui. Tagliafico, I just remember that summer, us and United were linked with him perennially. It was mental. Hakim Ziyech was in the number 10. Lissandro Martinez was in defensive midfield. Donny van der Beek.
Lissandro Martinez, Jesus.
Yeah. And the front three was David Neres, who infamously messaged his now wife and said, "I am David Neres, come to me." I tried it, didn't work.
Did you say I'm? The problem, Louis, is you probably said I am David Neres, and the woman was like, "No, you're clearly not David Neres."
No. It was also a text to Margot Robbie, so maybe that's why it didn't work. But you had that, and then Dusan Tadic in the false nine, and the one which is just oh my god, I can't believe he was playing. Quincy Promes was on the left wing.
I thought it was going to be Quincy Promes. Yeah,
Quincy, what? Yeah. That's mental. And Closer came
Quincy
on that
Promes
night.
He sounds suspiciously like a Batman character.
Well, he basically is a Batman character because he's currently hiding somewhere to not get sent back to prison and be put on trial in the Netherlands. Do you know about that?
I probably have heard about the story.
Yeah, it's like basically, I think it was like a gangland shooting or like a drug thing, and he's basically, I think he's in Russia and he's just not coming back. Like because of no extradition treaty, he's either in Russia or he's in Dubai, and he's just not coming back because he doesn't feel he'll face a fair trial. It kind of happens when you shoot someone, Quincy, but that's just me. Players that came on that night, by the way, Reece James came on for Alonso in the 46th minute. Callum Hudson-Odoi came on for Mason Mount. He'll be much happier because he's been under a manager that can actually get the best out of him now at Nottingham Forest. Per Schurz came on for David Neres. Edson Alvarez came on for Hakim Ziyech. Batshuayi came on for Kovacic. Oh my god! Like, I'm not gonna lie, that Chelsea team is shit.
Well, I mean,
I still can't believe they didn't get to the Champions League.
But this is the thing, like that's only a season before we win the Champions League.
It's mental, that, isn't it?
So, but there was a lot of change, obviously, with the team that eventually won the European Cup the year later. But yeah, it was just so much about that game that was just bizarre. I highly doubt we're going to see a repeat of that on Wednesday. The intriguing thing was on my preview, I spoke with Michael Statham, who's an Eredivisie expert, and I spoke with him when we signed Hato over the summer, and I was quite amazed because I obviously, generally for my previews, you look at the recent form, you try and do as much research as you can, but of course it's very different when if you're living it on a regular basis compared to just scouring it quickly, or unless you're, especially European games compared to Premier League games where we have a lot more extensive knowledge on these teams. But apparently Chelsea could sack another head coach in the span of a couple of days if we win this game, because things are not looking great for Ajax at the moment. So I think that's something of intrigue. And you look at that team, there definitely is young talent, but the coach John Hettinger, he's under a lot of pressure at the moment. And other than Wout Weghorst,
hang on, as in Everton's Johnny Heitinga?
Yeah.
Oh my god, okay.
Yeah, it's the same guy, and apparently, there's a feeling that he needs to be out. So, yeah, we could see another 30-something word statement after this game. How are you feeling about it? I feel like the vibe should be good right after Saturday.
I mean, this is what I was saying right at the top. That game was, as you said, we shouldn't be expecting another thing like that to happen. Like, that was just completely, absolutely mental. But we weren't. It was end to end, but I swear we were down significantly at one point. Like, so it was it like 3-1 down or something? Let me check that again. That's it. Yeah, it was end to end, and we went 3-1 down, and we came back to draw 4-4. We went 4-1 down, and we came back. So, yeah, we're 4-1 down to Ajax, and you just, I think a great example, when I watched that AC, when I was in Milan and watched us play Milan in the Graham Potter, right? You see a side which is, I personally look, I'm a bit of a romanticist when it comes to this sort of stuff, and I love my culture and I love my football history. And to see a side like AC Milan look so lackluster on the dominant European stages, and when you think probably about 15 years ago, you had Ibrahimovic, you had Thiago Silva, you had Nesta, Maldini had just finished up. There was unbelievable talent, but Ronaldinho, David Beckham, like all these players in Milan. And then you look at it now, it's just a really toothless beast. And I feel the same about Ajax. Like I'd love to be sitting here, right, saying we're playing like this is a proper Ajax team. Like this is Clarence Seedorf. This is, all these other players that have come through at Ajax and really made a massive difference. This is Johan Cruyff. These are these players which you look up for. I'm really excited to see them. And even when we played them in 1920, there was a little element of that because of how well they'd done in the previous season's Champions League. But I feel this should be a game which should, touch wood, be a walk in the park. Like, it should be very, very cut and dry, because the quality of Ajax at the minute in the Eredivisie is just meh in comparison to what they have been even in that division over recent years. They have been a force. They're not really that at the minute. PSV and Feyenoord are leaps and bounds ahead of them. And I think this should be a fairly simple job for Chelsea, but it seems to be those simple jobs which we struggle with. So I'm going to be interested to see how Ajax set up. If obviously I've not watched much of them, I've just I've scoured the results, had a quick look. Like, they've not been doing great. If they are following the Ajax philosophy, I think it could be a very, very interesting game. If they are just going to go into it, we need to get out of this league phase, we need to try and get into the next round, and they're just going to go for it simply and just shut up shop, I do think we might struggle. That's my worry, because we made hard work of Nottingham Forest, and I like, the second half was a completely different story, as me and you both said in the voice note reviews, right? But if we make hard work of this game, I'm wary. I'm kind of already looking forward to Sunderland. Like, I'm going, right, Sunderland are actually playing quite well at the minute. We need to do, I think we need to stamp our authority in this game, is how I look at it. And that would give me more confidence going into the rest of the fixtures as well. Because I do think that loss to Bayern Munich, not great at all. Obviously, we did okay in the previous Champions League game, and okay being the key word, really. I'm now going, right, stamp your authority in this game, because Atalanta are going to be quite difficult. They're no mugs. We've still got Barcelona to play as well. It's a case for me that I want to see this Chelsea team actually dominate a side properly. So I don't think we've done that for a little while now, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there I agree with. Like, especially if you look at, to me, I'd argue that first half against Forest was the worst of the season so far.
Yeah, agree.
Like, the difference being that, like, don't get me wrong, it was atrocious at the start of Man United, but at least you can say we went down to 10 men and our goalkeeper got sent off within 8 minutes. At least you can say that. Against Forest, it was baffling how poor we were. And, Chelsea did get quite fortunate on Saturday. The XG, I think, for Forest was over 2, edging towards 3. They had about 5 big chances in the game. Not just in the first half, they also had some big chances in the second half, even after Chelsea had sort of clicked into gear and got a 2-0 lead. So Chelsea got quite fortunate. And I think the worrying thing at the moment is how many chances we gift to teams and how we're starting away from home, especially. we spoke about how we start games sluggishly and that being a problem, and also kind of the opposition, right? Like it's there seems to be a real, psychological block for this group of players, right? When it's Liverpool and they know that they have to be bang on it for 90 minutes, and if they're not bang on it for 90 minutes, there's no chance of us winning. We perform professionally, we perform with focus. There's a lot of conviction about the team. There's an intensity about the team. It seems like when it is at Liverpool, and it's a team where Chelsea are expected to win, there's that complacency comes in, and we're, sluggishly giving the ball away. And luckily, we were in a position on Saturday where at half time, Maresca's probably sitting there and going, "Thank God we've got it at half time 0-0, because this game could have been out of sight potentially if we faced a better team." And that's my concern for this game. And it's also the balancing act that Maresca has this season, where this time last year when he would have a Thursday Conference League game, it was pretty clear that you give a load of your first choice players the night off, and will comfortably breeze to a win against quite poor opposition, don't have to play that great. And then the Sunday Premier League game is kind of sorted, and that there won't be much crossover between who plays on Thursday and who plays on the Sunday. This year, obviously, it's a bit different, and I think that's the balancing act that I'm intrigued to see with this game, because I do think there is a temptation, and we may disagree with it. Like, it's the balancing act between, this is absolutely a game Chelsea have to get maximum points from in their Champions League phase. It's one of the winnable ones. It's one of the ones that they have to be walking away with 3 points. Same with Paphos, same with Karabag. I mean, I'd even argue Atalanta is in that bracket as well.
Absolutely is, yeah.
Because we lost the opening game against Bayern. So, there is that. But then also, there are opportunities to rest players, right? And given we've got Sunderland on Saturday, you then got Wolves in the Cup, Spurs away, Karabag, and then Wolves at home before the next international break. And with our injury record recently, I won't blame Maresca if he rotates a bit, because I think in some senses you are forced to rotate. Joao Pedro is suspended for this game, so you're going to have to rotate at least in one of the positions. But then I also think there is kind of interesting things that have happened that I think will maybe allow him to rotate a bit more. But then you always do, it's the thing we say, right? Like, I looked at that Forest starting 11, and it worried me the moment I saw it, that it would be a repeat of the Brentford game, where you've basically wasted 45 minutes and you have to basically make up for the mistakes you made in the starting lineup. So it's not an easy thing, right? Especially for a midweek game. But it's intriguing to see who starts, who doesn't, and the forward planning towards Sunderland, which, whether Maresca admits it or not, there probably is some of that going on as well. Because it has to in the Champions League, Premier League dynamic at the moment, because he didn't have to deal with this kind of midweek game being quite serious, like he did last year, where he could just kind of completely have a separate squad, and the pressure was toned like way down on those early Conference League games.
I would argue though that with this game, I feel like I'm going to be doing Ajax a massive disservice saying this. It feels a bit Conference League-y. I do feel like you could do a lot of rotations in this game, purely because of how poor they are. We'll get into the Echo 11 later, but I mean, this is a great opportunity to see Marc Guiu actually start. He proved in the Forest game why he was so pivotal in terms of, his attitude and just applying it to the game. He automatically had a bit of a presence up front. Raw, but it was a presence. So I think there's a real opportunity there to work with a player who can actually, fill the void where Liam Delap is. And I think it actually allows Joao Pedro to play in the position which I've always said ever since we started doing these shows, since he arrived at Chelsea, where he performs better, which is a number 10 or an auxiliary forward. He's not a centre forward for me. So the fact that we can alleviate the pressure on him, and his pressure is very much alleviated with the red card in the previous game. It'd be interesting to see what happens up there. But before we do get into the Echo 11, there's one thing we haven't touched on that's happened this week in between the Nottingham Forest game and, of course, this fixture. And it's Chelsea have a shift in the structure, finally. I feel like we should talk about that. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I think we're talking about structures and how teams are shaping up. What do you think about this new hire coming in from Liverpool, Dan? I'm quite excited about this one.
Yeah, Dave. Is it Dave or David? Let's say David Fallows from Liverpool. He's kind of been an architect of the recent transfer strategy at Liverpool, but more impressively oversaw the signings for Salah, Firmino, Mane. An era of Liverpool that is looked back upon, not just fondly by Liverpool, but I guess if you're looking at it in terms of how you build a squad from outside Champions League places to inside Champions League places to winning a Premier League title. I mean, it's one of those historic reference points that I think a lot of clubs look at, right, in terms of the way that squad was built over a period of time under Jurgen Klopp. I think it's a good appointment. I think undeniably he walks in, and I think Cy Phillips has already reported that it seems like he's going to have a seniority within the group, which I think makes sense to me because
that Tweedledee and Tweedledum are reporting into him.
Well, this is the thing, right? And logically, it has to be the case because he's the most high-profile, successful, elite thinker within that group. Like, that's just undeniable. Like, he's the one guy that can walk into that environment. It's like, similar cliche about like when you buy, you're a team that doesn't really have many winners in it, and you buy an experienced winner, and that player is looked upon for a lot of experience, right? In terms of his experience, it's kind of undeniable in terms of what he's done, and obviously very, very recently being a part of a team that won the Premier League title. And I think that the positive thing for me is that I think it's something me and you spoke about, right? And I think it's something that we want to see from next summer moving forward is, how do you take what is a squad with some very good young talent, very good potential, have shown signs of progress undeniably, but need still some things to take them the extra step to bring in that ruthless streak, to bring in that robotic kind of menacing side to a title challenger that is going to robotically go out every week and bag the points that are needed, not just on the big occasions when everyone's watching. And I think that that's hopefully what the sort of mentality that Dave Fallows will bring, is that they understood at Liverpool there was a time and a place for the more, I guess, intelligent or kind of long-term planning recruitment gets, versus no, we just need to go out and buy the obvious names here. And the two obvious ones were, Alisson and Van Dijk are the two in 2018 that, make such a pivotal difference, right? Because they'd already invested in a group of players that were performing well, but there was kind of no messing about with those signings. And I think that is something that needs to be brought in for Chelsea, right? Like goalkeeper, centre back, wherever it isn't on the pitch. What I want to see next summer is, you want to be in a position where I don't want to see Chelsea going out and signing 10 players again, because that to me would be a sign that we're still swimming in familiar waters. And I think it's the waters that when Stanley, Stewart, and some of the others probably feel comfortable in, where it's that mentality shift, right? Of operating at one level where you're used to buying players for the future, very raw players, because that works for your level, but you sell off your best players once they gain enough value in the market, compared to when you're at one of these big clubs. No, you're supposed to be at the top of the food chain. You're supposed to be the ones very much dictating the market. So I think that's what he'll bring. I mean, until we see the evidence of a window and how it works, it's all right me sitting here and listing all of his achievements at Liverpool, different club, different environment, until you see it in the clear model. But what I will say is, for some positivity, I think it is a good get, undeniably. I mean, his CV speaks for itself. It's a long CV. I think he worked at Man City, Newcastle, and even as far back as like Bolton when they were in the Premier League a long time ago. So he's has extensive work in the game. So I think on paper, it looks like a good piece of business. And I think the key part of that is maybe finally some accountability for the people. Because I want, there's so many cooks in the kitchen, whether in a year or two's time, some of those people will no longer be here. And I wonder if this is the first sign of that, right? Because if you were super happy, I'm sure they'll brief that they're super happy with their recruitment structure. If they were super happy with their recruitment structure, why would they be bringing someone with such profile in
Well,
the
I'd argue that they're doing that purely because he's available. Because it's the thing that I was reading anyway. I said he was unhappy at Liverpool. He was he'd felt he'd reached the end of the cycle. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp kind of was the culmination of that, and now they've gone in a bit of a different direction. And maybe he didn't agree with it. Given a club with such pedigree that spent so much money, and is the best club in England, and is undoubtedly going to go on and achieve amazing things, and they're very different to everybody else and how they do things. I think he was just very unhappy there. So I'm intrigued to see how it goes. I am, like you, excited about it, but I also look at it and go, there's a little bit of a smell of Christopher Vivell here, I've got a horrible feeling he's going to come in, look at it and go, because this is what elite people have done with Chelsea over the past 2-3 years. They've looked at it and gone, not for me, cheers, bye. So, especially with obviously how Winstanley and Stewart have this very strong relationship with Balik Barley, is putting somebody in between them as a buffer going to be successful? Or, when they say, oh, they've come in slightly above them, it's like, oh, God, that just stinks of, we've had it in the workplace, mate. So, well, they're not above you, but they're slightly above you. You don't report into them, but you do report. That's what it smells of to me. So I feel like there's going to be a little bit of an issue there in the first window. So I'm very much like, let's judge him off. For me, if he stays long enough, I'd say judge him after a couple of seasons. I'd say let's see how Chelsea have developed then. But speaking of development, Dan, we should probably jump into the fixture. I know that was a bit of a diversion, guys, but it was small. We spoke about it. And we should probably do the Echo 11. Now, This is given what I've said earlier, I don't think it's going to be relatively straightforward. I do think there's going to be some adjustments and some changes. In goal, I don't think there will be. I think we'll see Robert Sanchez. I think that's a given. Right back, I think it will be interesting. And I say that because I was about to go jump in and say straight away it's going to be Reece James. But then I also think the fact that Malo Gusto will be unavailable for the Premier League game this weekend, we may see him get some minutes in his legs in this game. Left back, self-explanatory. Centre halves, I think, again, could be interesting. I think we'll see Joro Hato. I'd like to think we'll see him and Tosin, given that Tosin was doing the presser with Maresca. But I mean, that's my backline anyway, Dan. I mean, challenge me on it if you don't think I'm way off the mark.
I think you've got an opportunity here by circumstance to rest Reece James. And although he's coming off the back of a win and a goal, and he looks brilliant at the moment. You have a chance to rest him. I think you probably should. And as you rightly say, it just kind of feels quite obvious unless the player is like really, really fringe, like when they can't play the week. It's like Chalobah was not going to play against Liverpool, so he played the full 90 against Benfica. It's just, you just do it, right? It's just a sensible kind of safe option, because then you're able to rest someone for the weekend. You give that guy the full 90.
Yeah.
And it freshens up the squad. So I think that's easy to do. I agree with you. I think Tosin will play. He did the media. He came off the bench at the weekend. I think he's seen as a senior player in the squad. I'm unsure who starts next to him. I could see Cucurella being rested, Hato playing left back. And I wouldn't mind seeing Josh Achimpong given another start. I thought Josh was just so good at the weekend.
Yeah.
Well, you also have to balance out in this, right? When I was thinking about my lineup, right, was that you have to balance out. Yeah, you want to do rotation, but like we've seen it this season, we saw it Lavia on Saturday, right, where you throw in players who don't have a lot of match sharpness, and that can really be impactful in a negative way. And I think what you don't want is to have too many players within this 11 that haven't played much football recently or aren't coming off the back of, really positive momentum. And I think that absolutely is what Josh Achimpong, kind of signals, right? He scored a goal at the weekend. He's feeling good, and he's probably got the freshness to keep playing.
No, I agree.
I wouldn't be stunned, though. I have to say my first instinct when I thought about the team was I could see him doing both Fofana and Tosin and just going afresh back to...
I really hope not. I feel that would just be ludicrous.
But I think
mental.
would not surprise me, because I think that would be a strategy of, because we've had so many injury problems there. The back two that I played against Forest are completely rested for this game. I mean, I wouldn't do it personally, because it's not a friendly. It's a game you need to win. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I think Joel Hato, I'd like to see him start, whether it's as a left centre back or as a left back. Narratively, of course, against his former club, but I do think that for me the big one is resting Reece James. You can bring him off the bench. I don't mind that. He's playing obviously very well, but it just kind of that's probably him and Tosin are probably the two ones I feel most certain about. Of course, the percentages say that Cucurella will also start, because he kind of starts every single game for us. But again, you bought Joel Hato so you could rest him. And I think this is probably an opportunity. This and Wolves next week in the Cup are probably two opportunities midweek to rest Cucurella.
I agree. And I like your back line. So let's go with that one. I like the look of that. I like as well how it just allows. I think the problem with Gusto is he's proven he can't invert, but we seem to be forcing him either to invert or play as a defensive midfielder, which I still don't understand. And I do think we were speaking earlier about this week's game and obviously watching Forest together. Maresca can be a little bit too scientific in his decision making. I'd like to see Gusto play as a flying wing back. I think that's where he's best. I think that's where we saw the best of under Pochettino as well. And I like how with your shape, it kind of allows Hato to basically come in as a back three on the left-hand side. So I'm very keen with that. And you know why I'm not with back threes. So let's go with that. Midfield. Now, what I thought was interesting with this midfield that played at the weekend, the initial starting one, was that I thought it was going to be far more industrious. So when I saw Lavia, Caicedo and Andre Santos, I thought you'd see two box-to-box midfielders and one sitting, which I thought, you know what, fair play when you're coming up against Elliot Anderson and Douglas Luiz in midfield.
Caicedo didn't start, did he? It was Lavia.
Not Caicedo. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, because when I initially thought it would be Reece James. I thought Gusto was right back, and I thought it was going to be Reece back in midfield, and then I thought it was industrious, and I thought that was great. Turns out that's not the case, right? However, as this is the Echo 11, and we do what we want to do and what we think would work, I'd like to see an industrious midfield again, because we don't really have the options for a number 10 right now. Because I think Andre Santos looked a bit out of his depth there. Again, he's a box crashing midfielder. He's not an out-and-out number 10. I feel like he's like a... God, I'm going to sound like one of those fucking idiots on Twitter. An advanced 8. Fucking kill me. I feel sick. So, sorry. I need a second. I actually feel a bit sick after saying that. Oh, give me a minute. Okay, right. He's a number 8. He's a box-to-box midfielder, okay? But he's a little bit further forward, right? We'll go with that. So if it was me, I'd like to see Lavia. I'd like to see Enzo come back in because he'll be fit again. And I'd like to see Andre Santos.
I slightly disagree. I mean, I'm a fan of Lavia. But to me, I was quite alarmed with how poor he looked at the weekend.
I agree, which is why I play him in this game, because then it gives
him
an
option to get more minutes. The problem is the only way he's going to get around a lack of match sharpness is playing minutes. So I understand that, right? Like, you'd absolutely be playing him next week against Wolves, right? That's like one of those prime games where you're like, fringe players who haven't played a lot of football, that's when you play him in. I don't know whether he'll start Enzo Fernandez. The way he was speaking in the press conference made it sound like, he's back training, but still a little bit doubtful. He is one of the kind of group of Cucurella, Neto, and some others that when they're fit, they kind of always play. And I do think we missed his ability to progress the ball on Saturday. Like that was also quite notable. Like, especially in the first half, Chelsea just without Caicedo as well. Like, it just felt like we had no midfield. There was no link between the defense and the attack. Like, there was just nothing in the middle that was connecting all of that. So I would actually go Caicedo and Andre Santos as the midfield too.
and have Lavia on the bench to come on.
Yeah, and mainly to rotate Caicedo if you can, take him off as early as possible. And I disagree with you that there isn't a number 10. There is a number 10 profile-wise, and he did it last time against Benfica, and that's Beneventi.
Of course. I forgot about him.
So I think if you're playing the same system, you would start Beneventi in that central role.
He didn't look too bad either.
He's in all of his appearances so far for Chelsea, he hasn't looked bad. He's looked, he's looked industrious at times. He's looked quite, skillful with the ball, and looks like someone who, with the right time could, really develop into something. But I just don't think he's not really going to get it at Chelsea. That's kind of the problem, is that he kind of is very, very much an understudy, like, in a standby, where he's not going to be playing the majority of the minutes. So for him to get that rhythm is probably going to be quite difficult for him. But I feel profile-wise, he's the most suitable option out of the ones that you have. And the way Maresca uses his system, it's not really. At times, it can look like 2-8s, but if you're talking about someone who just has that free role behind the striker that will go left, go right, drop a little bit deeper, pick up the ball, turn. I think out of his options, unless you're pushing Enzo Fernandez forward or you're moving Esteval central, that's it really. So I just think, again, Beneventi, he played against Benfica. I think he'll start this game.
Yeah, I like it. I've gone for that. I like the midfield. But basically, by the sound of things, Dan, we're going with your team rather than my one. I think I just worry about Caicedo because I right now, arguably, he's the best in his position in the world right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to run him into the ground.
You don't, but the problem you've got is that when he's not there, I don't know how you get around this, right? But the problem is when he's not there, I mean, you really feel it. Like the Saturday was a case where I know it wasn't just him, but you really do feel when he's not there. And that, I'm not saying that's an easy fix, because to take someone of that high quality, it's like any top player, right? Like the to try and replace them is sometimes just not impossible. Like you can try and do it profile wise, you can try and pick up players statistically who look similar, but there are things that Caicedo does to a level that, unless we are blessed with more of them, like you're not going to find many players. I agree with that fear, but I don't know. I worry that if we have the sort of first half we did again, like that we did on Saturday again against Ajax, and we're giving the ball away cheaply around our box, like, you got to hope that teams are just really bad at finishing against us, because we're giving away such cheap opportunities that at this level you are going to be punished. And that, I think, will be in the mind of Maresca. And to be fair, Caicedo played what? I know it was over 45 minutes, 50 minutes on Saturday. So can he play 60 minutes here? And then probably he plays the full 90 against Sunderland. And then hopefully, dream scenario is you can rest him completely against Wolves, and then you have him ready for the Spurs game.
Well, Dario Sugo should be back for Wolves, no? Or be...
I don't think... I think Sugo's out for a long period of time.
He was out for the same period as Liam Delap, and they pretty much went out at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, we haven't really heard... I mean, I think you'd be here unless Maresca just because he hasn't been asked directly about Asugo. I mean, I haven't seen anything to suggest that Asugo's anywhere close to returning. The good thing is you've got Lavia. It's just you've got to increase Lavia's match sharpness. And the question,
incrementally, otherwise you'll break again.
Yeah, because the problem is, right, it's that's the balancing act, right? Like, you want him to get minutes to ramp that up, but then you risk if you throw him into another game and he has a repeat of what he did on Saturday. It's having a detrimental effect on you. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Lavia and Caicedo, which we saw work wonders actually at the end of last season a couple of times, when those two were both in the team together. So do we? So let's play this out then. Do you do that?
do you drop I guess it'd be Bonanotte that would make way, and you have Santos, Caicedo, and Lavia.
I'm not the big fan, and I'm not the biggest fan actually of that combination. I would probably actually have, if he's being used as a number 10, I'd rather have Bonanotte over Santos. I just think Santos plays far too. To me, it's a bit like Fernandez, right? Santos for me on Saturday was just far too high. Like he was playing a role where it's like, to me, he's got, as you say, like he's got to be progressing from me. He looks like a midfielder that feels a lot more comfortable making later runs into the box than he does like sort of in that middle ground of waiting in pockets of space where he was being asked to play, right? It's what Palmer does so wonderfully. It's like he's a lot more comfortable, and João Pedro the same, in those pockets of space between the midfield and defence. I'm not sure Santos is that player. I don't think he is. I think he's someone that wants to be receiving the ball maybe from a centre-back, combining and then charging into
driving
space.
at the pitch. Yeah. Okay, so let's leave the midfield as it is then. So we've gone Caicedo, Santos, Bonanotte. I think Sparky Plado picks himself up front. Marc Guiu's got to go in. I finally it felt when I saw him come on and do what he did at the weekend, I felt vindicated. I was sat there and I was like, I'm glad I was thinking the way I was, because Chelsea with João Pedro up front, okay, but I just didn't feel that there was that threat, that opportunity, that someone who could cause problems and hassle defenders. And Marc Guiu, as soon as he came on, was a shithouse. And I think that when you think about Chelsea strikers, right, you think about Diego, you think about Drogba, you think about Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, you think about these players which are tough and aggressive and on the front foot. And Marc Guiu, I think, arguably needs to potentially hone it in a little bit, but he's a young lad, so that's going to come with time. And it still feels weird me saying he's a young lad and we're both 27 years of age, but we've got to that point in life now. But I do think that he's somebody who, and I'm glad that Maresca said he's going to be with us a long time now. I'm glad he's finally seeing a player there which he feels can maybe lead the line for Chelsea. And I think that he's somebody who can offer opportunities. And like I was saying earlier when we were talking about him briefly, it allows João Pedro to maybe play that little bit deeper. Or if you really want it to be really interesting and you want to fit, let's say, look, Palmer's back fit, Liam Delap's still not playing football, but you've got the opportunity to play João Pedro and Cole Palmer. You could have Cole Palmer on the right-hand side. You could have João Pedro as a number 10. You could have Guiu up front. And I think you've got a very good unit there of where goals could come from. And it allows the freedom of players to play in positions where they're better rather than scientifically feel they need to shoehorn them in. Do you know what I mean?
I think the best thing you can say about Guiu is that he's just a nuisance.
Yeah.
Like he's a bit unorthodox, he's a bit gangly and sometimes a little bit awkward on the ball. But I think that works in his advantage a bit, because I think sometimes when you've got a player that's kind of technically proficient and kind of ticks all the boxes and does everything to the letter, basically, I think defenders find it easier to kind of, they know what they're getting.
It's telegraphing.
Someone who's going to do something that you're not really expecting, and sometimes I'm not even sure his technique's a little bit wild that he doesn't even know what he's doing, but like it works kind of in his favor. But I'm not just rubbishing him. Like I think if you watch his performance at the weekend, some of the runs he was making were the runs that a good centre forward would make. Like he was, dragging centre backs. Everything seemed to seamlessly click into gear. Like when we just had a focal point there, much like when Liam Delap was there at the start of the season. So I'd be really, really, really disappointed if Tyreek George starts. I mean, I think that it would be I think it would just be so poor by Maresca. Not saying that's not a damning indictment on Tyreek George as a player. It's just
he's not a centre forward.
He's not a centre forward. And I think what you end up risking is another situation where we spend a half looking disconnected and not really impacting the game. If Ajax are as vulnerable as we believe they are, or what people who know them believe they are, you'd like to be in a scenario where Chelsea are comfortable with an hour gone. And then if Maresca has gone a bit more stronger than we expect him to or would like him to, then you have the freedom to rotate and the freedom to bring on someone from the bench. Because we haven't, I think that's also been a problem right this season where, there have been some games where you feel like Chelsea just aren't quite, they're not that convincing. They're not really grabbing a game by the scruff of the neck. And even on Saturday, like until we scored the third, you were kind of thinking with some of the chances for us, we're getting like, if one of these goes in, the crowd's going to turn and, it's going to be a pretty dicey end to the game. So, yeah, I think Guiu for me, it's not a guarantee that Guiu's either going to score a goal, but I think his presence just makes such a difference. It seems to.
It was like that little when the ball bounced off him and he fell on his arse, but he just swept the ball through. Yeah, it's little things like that he does, where it's like saying he's unorthodox and he's gangling. That's why I love him, because he's just like you said, he's unpredictable. And I think having a focal point that's also unpredictable in a good way, by the way, not unpredictable like Alvaro Morata. He's actually is he score? Is he not? Is he going to be onside? Is he going to be offside? It's unpredictable, a bit like Diego was, where he might do something absolutely ludicrous, but it'll be ludicrous, which means it's the benefit of the team. And you see everyone kind of come together and people fill in that role. He feels like a good team player. So, I'm excited to see some more of him. But yeah, I mean, Marc Guiu, I think, is definitely the starter. You mentioned Tyreek George. I'm looking at him based on what Maresca was saying in the press. I'm looking at him on one of the wings, but that's an either-or situation. Who I feel is a guarantee to start is Pedro Neto. Now, I made a statement the other day, and I want to reinforce it because I think it's fair to say Caicedo is Chelsea's best player, right? But on performances and on consistency and on someone who works hard to the benefit of everyone around them, I don't think there's another player in this team better at doing that than Pedro Neto. And I think he has been a bit of an unsung hero this season. I'm very much a big fan of him. I think he's Chelsea's best winger right now. And I think he walks into this team and onto every single team sheet without fail. The question in this situation is, on what side would you put him?
I'd play him on the left because I feel like Esteban has to start on the right. Just on Pedro. I mean, he to me the best comparison I'd give him, and this I don't know why I'm saying it on this podcast because you'll understand it as a compliment and other people, but in some corners maybe it's not seen as a compliment, but I really do think it is. For me, he kind of is the Willian or the Cesar Azpilicueta in the current group.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is that I think the coach just loves playing him. I think
he trusts him.
He probably has some of the highest trust in a way that other, because there might be other players that excite people and would like to see more of, but I just think what you're getting with Pedro Neto, and it's not just that, it's not like to an all right standard. He actually has improved since the Club World Cup, in my opinion. I think he has. There's a lot more in product. I mean, the ball he played for the first goal on Saturday was wonderful, and he just seems to be a real driving force at Chelsea at the moment. Like the Benfica game was a pretty forgettable game of football, but the one thing I remember from it was Pedro Neto. Like he was really the only one that night who seemed to be driving the team forward to make things happen. So I think that's a persistent kind of thing that you need in teams, winning teams, right? Players who are going to do the dirty work. We know tracking back, he's a very hard worker every single game. So I agree with you. It's right to give the flowers to Pedro Neto because I think he rightly has kind of earned a consistent place. And there aren't many times I'm predicting a Chelsea lineup at the moment where I'm not going to have Neto. Yeah, because you kind of have to just based on evidence, but also based on performance. I think he's there. He merits a start every single week at the moment.
I agree, and I agree with Esteval as well. I was just unsure which side they were going to go on. To be honest, I kind of felt that bit interchangeable, but I'm very happy with that team. In fact, I'm very, very happy with that team, which probably means it's not going to be the team that's going to get selected. But you know what? We're going to tell you what it is anyway, because this is the Echo 11 for Chelsea versus Ajax. In goal, you have Robert Sanchez, left back Jorel Hato. You have a centre-back pairing of Josh Achimpong and Tosin Adebayo. You have Malo Gusto at right back, Caicedo and Santos as your defensive midfield pairing with Bonanotte just in front of them in the number 10. On the left-hand side, you have Pedro Neto. On the right, you have Esteval Willian, and you have Sparky Play-Doh leading the line for Chelsea. Finally getting his opportunity to shine and show what he is capable of. But guys, that is the Echo 11. This has been the Chelsea Echo and your preview of the big Champions League night against Ajax. After the game, of course, the score will be live over on X. If you want to go and get involved in the final score with the score, tune in, or if you say a piece on the game, make sure you request, and I'm sure he'll love to have a conversation with you. Obviously, head across to Dan's channel. There's obviously a link that'll be coming up on the screen at the end of the video to check out his preview and also check out what he said with the Eredivisie expert, who is going to tell you all about Ajax from their perspective. Make sure you drop us all a follow on socials. If you're watching on YouTube, drop us a sub, drop us a like, and tell people where you can watch it. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or other platforms, make sure you give us a 5-star review and drop us a follow. But I've been Louis.
I've been Dan.
And this has been the Chelsea Echo. We'll see you later.